Hello students, my name is Pooja Pathak and today we are going to study the topic body fluid and circulation part 2. So today we are going to include in this topic the first one, the structure of heart, external structures, atrium, ventricles, walls present in the heart, location of the walls, physiology of the heart, conduction of the heart, double circulation. Okay, so let's start with the topic. Now coming to the slide, see, this is the first slide which shows the structure of the heart. Now you can see the structure of the heart here. You must know that the heart is mesodermal in origin. Okay, you all know about the three layers, the ectoderm, the endoderm and the mesoderm. So the heart, the origin of the heart is mesoderm. It is situated in the mediastinum. Okay, in between the lungs, the place, the cavity, that is the mediastinum, and where the heart is located. Okay, but one thing you should know, that this part is known as the apex part, and this part forms the base of the heart. Okay, in general what we say, this is the apex and this is base, but this is not the base, this one is the base. Okay, so you should be clear about this. And now coming to the next point, that the human heart actually, it is roughly in size of a, like a large fist. Okay, you can see here it is about the large fist. Now the weight of the heart is, in women and men it is different a little bit, that is 280 to 340 grams in men and 230 to 280 grams in women. Now coming to the next slide, the wall of the heart comprises of these two layers. Okay, see, you all know that heart is very delicate organ. So as we order something from Amazon or Flipkart, you all know that delicate things are always packed in a very protective thing. Okay, so what happens here also, the outer covering of the heart forms actually the two layers. Okay, this is the outer fibrous pericardium and the inner serous pericardium. You can see here the diagram. Okay, this is the diagram which shows the cavity, which is, see here, this is the serous pericardium. Okay, this one, sorry, this is the fibrous pericardium, this is the serous pericardium. So fibrous pericardium is the outer one, the serous pericardium is the inner one. And serous pericardium also is divided into two layers, outer and inner. Inner one is visceral, outer one is parietal pericardium. In these two layer, in between, in these two layer, there is present one pericardial cavity. Okay, you can see here pericardial cavity, and in this cavity only the pericardial fluid is present. Okay, so you have to understand about these two layer, about the heart, the outer fibrous pericardium and the inner serous pericardium. And in between these two, outer parietal layer and the visceral layer, there is pericardial fluid in the pericardium cavity. Now coming to the wall of the heart, now we will talk about the exactly the wall. Okay, the wall of the heart comprise of, which is epicardium, myocardium, middle one, and endocardium, the inner one. Understood? So the heart of the wall, it has three layers: epicardium, myocardium and endocardium. Now coming to the external structure of the heart, as in general you all know, in previous, in ninth or in eighth class or in very lower classes, you all have studied, it has four chambers: two upper smaller chambers and two lower, the largest, the lower chambers, the ventricles. Atria is also known as auricles. So two upper and two lower. Now coming to the grooves, about, in outer surface they have some grooves. Okay, that some grooves that is here present. You can see here the grooves. Okay, these grooves actually the coronary sulcus. Okay, this is the groove which is present in between the atrioventricular groove. In between the atria and in between the ventricle, there is the groove which is known as the coronary sulcus, and in interventricular groove, this groove. Okay, interventricular means in between the ventricles, the groove is known as the coronary arteries. Okay, so these are the arteries which is present in this groove. Okay, so this is the general view about the external structure of the heart. Now coming to the next thing, now about the atrium. You all know the two upper chambers are the smaller one, and that is known as atrium, or you can say atria, or you can say the auricles. Now coming to the auricles, in the two auricles, the thing is that these two auricles are separated by the interauricular septum. Okay, this one is the auricle, this one is the auricle. It is separated by the interauricular septum. Now second thing is very important to know, that the septum has closed depression which is known as the fossa ovalis. Okay, there is one depression in between these two septum. That depression is fossa ovalis. Okay, what it represents actually. When we are in the embryonic stage, the flow of the blood, there is mixing of the blood from this chamber to the left chamber, right to left chamber of the atria. So that actually depression represents the foramen ovale, which is the cavity, or which is the passage for the blood flow in the embryonic stage. So when this particular foramen ovale is not closed properly while taking birth, so that condition, when the mixing of blood is occurring there, that is known as the patent foramen ovale. Understood? So this is very important. So what is fossa ovalis? Fossa ovalis is a depression which is present in the human beings. Foramen ovale is in the infants, or we can say the, sorry, infants only. It is present into the embryonic stage. Okay, so foramen ovale in the embryonic stage, fossa ovalis in the adults. It is a depression, whereas in mixing of the blood takes place in the foramen ovale in the embryonic stage. And patent foramen ovale, that is the when the foramen ovale does not closes properly, it is patent foramen ovale. Now coming to the next thing, you can see here two terms, masculopectiny and the crusta terminalis. You can see here in the diagram these depressions. Okay, you can see in the, this is the inner wall of the atria, which shows some grooves, ridges. Okay, this represents the uh, pectiny, and this crusta terminalis representing the smooth surface of the atrium, from where the heart muscles, such a thick portion of the heart muscles in the right atrial appendages. Okay, so that is crista terminalis, the smooth one, and the ridges and the grooves, that ridges are representing the musculi pectini. These terms are asked very frequently in examination, so you should know. Now in my previous lectures also I told you all that the right atrium is the receiving chamber. Okay, actually atrium is the receiving chamber only, but right atrium is for receiving the deoxygenated blood. How we have learned it? Because of the doctor. D for deoxygenated blood, R for right atrium. Understood? So right atrium receives the blood from how many things? See, it receives the blood from the precaval, or we can say the superior vena cava, and second the post caval, the inferior vena cava, and the coronary sinus. Okay, so you all know precaval means superior vena cava. Then what is the superior vena cava? When the blood is collected from whole body. Okay, the upper part of the body, that upper part of the body, so it is superior vena cava. And when it is collected from the lower part of the body, it is the inferior vena cava. Here you can see this is the inferior vena cava, and here is the superior vena cava represented here. Okay, so this is superior, this is inferior, these are the vena cava. Now you all know, okay, from the upper part body the blood is collected, the lower part body's blood is collected, but what about the heart itself? Heart itself also needed the blood. So the coronary sinus, it collects the blood from the wall of the heart. Okay, so these three just actually they will collect the blood throughout the body, and they will pump it to they will give it to blood to the right atrium, because this is the deoxygenated blood, and right atrium receives is the deoxygenated blood. Now coming to the next slide. Now we'll talk about the ventricles of the heart. Ventricles actually, the two ventricles are there in the lower region, and they are thick walled and remain separated from each other by the interventricular septum, as I have already told you all. See here, you can see this is the ventricle chamber, lower chamber, and you can see this one, the left ventricle is the thickest, actually it has the thickest wall, and here this is the right ventricle. It is a little bit means not that much thick in comparison to the left ventricle. Okay, so ventricles has a thick wall, and here you can see some of the diagram. Now we will discuss about the things. Now you can see about the walls. Now we will talk about the walls. What is wall? Actually these walls are some, see, these are actually, they are 1 2 3, these are the three cusps. Okay, that will close and open while the pumping of the blood. Okay, and these are the gates which will perform the function of closing and opening, while the when the blood is needed from one chamber to the another chamber, the previous wall will close, so that backflow of the blood can be prevented. And when the blood has to go into the next chamber, the wall will be open. So here one thing has to be clear, that you have to make it clear that all walls, most of the walls, they are tri-cuspid. Okay, they have three cusps. One, two, three. Only one chamber, actually, in between the left atria and the left ventricle, in between these two ventricles and atrium, the left side, that left side, right and left ventricle, they have mitral wall, means bicuspid. They have only two cusps. Okay, except this two is, except this one, this left ventricle and left auricle. Apart from left, every all the this walls are the tricuspid. Okay, so it is easy to learn now. Now, how this opening and closing of the cusp occur? Now, you should know about. See, what make them stable at that place? It is the papillary muscles. Okay, it is the papillary muscles. Papillary muscles are also known as columnar carinae through the chordate tendon. Now, you must be thinking, what is these terms? Now, we'll understand how. See, this is a chamber, ventricular chamber. Now, you can see I have told you all that these are the cusps. Okay, here three tricusps. So, these cusps will open and close with the help of these thread-like structures. These thread-like structures actually represents the chordate tendinae. The name suggests chordate tendinae. So they are tendons. So they have cords which will help them to open and close. Now these cords are connected to the here. See, ventricular septum. Okay, ventricular septum, and this ventricular septum is connected. Sorry, this is the papillary muscles. Here you can see this is the papillary muscles. This anterolateral papillary muscles, they will hold the chordate tendinae so that the cusps can open and close. And why this is required? When blood enters into this chamber, this blood should not go back into the atrial chamber. So this chordate tendon in papillary muscles will manage it so that this will not go back. So this chordate tendon will not allow the cusp to go backside, and the flow of blood can be prevented. So you understood? So three terms here you have to learn in the ventricle chambers. This is the chordate tendon and chordate tendon, papillary muscles. So papillary muscles you know about. This is the papillary muscles, this is the chordate tendon, this is the cusps. Now left, sorry, this is actually in here, this is section 1. Now you can see this one first. See, this is the papillary muscles, chordate tendon, and the cusps of the tricuspid wall. It is in the natural heart. Now coming to the diagram, see, this is the heart. Now you can see here in the diagram, see, this is the chordate tendon, papillary muscles, and the ventricle chamber. This is the left ventricle, and this is the right ventricle. Left ventricle, you can see this is a little bit thick, and here the mitral valve is present. So left ventricle, mitral valve is present. Just remember, left ventricle, mitral valve, right ventricle, the tricuspid wall. And now ventricle, the portion is over. Now coming to the walls. Now you can see here, this is the wall, aortic walls, the pulmonary walls. Now aortic walls, and now we were talking about the first of all the chambers. Now there are walls present in the, see, this left ventricle and right ventricle, they will push the blood through the trunks to the body and the lungs. See, this left ventricle receives the oxygenated blood. So oxygenated blood is needed by the body. So it will go through the systematic arch, or we can say aortic arch. And this right ventricle receives the deoxygenated blood, which has to go to the lungs so that oxygenation can occur. So these actually blood, while they are being pushed there, they also need some cusps, or they also need some walls. So we were talking about these walls. Okay, so let's talk about the walls of these chambers also. Now we have seen the aortic arches and the pulmonary arch. Pulmonary arch give the blood from the left ventricle to the body, sorry, to the lungs. Pulmonary to lungs, systematic to the body. Now coming to the location of the walls, this is through, has to be learned. Precaval means, here you all know superior vena cava. Superior vena cava and right auricle, the walls is absent. You have to learn it, in which the walls are not present. In the precaval, in the right atrium, the walls are absent, and the pulmonary vein, the left auricle, the walls are absent. In these two, the walls are absent. Apart from that, The walls are seen in post caval and the right atrial. Post caval means the inferior vena cava. So this is very important. Eustachian wall, the word is, you should know about this word. Eustachian wall, if they ask you, Eustachian wall is present where? So it is present in between the inferior vena cava and the right atrium. And Thebesian wall, it is present in between the coronary sinus and the right atrium. Right atrium and right ventricle, they have tricuspid wall. Already I told you. Now right ventricle and pulmonary arch. Now we were talking about the pulmonary arch. Pulmonary arch, they have semilunar wall. Why semilunar? Because they have a wall which is looking like a half moon. So semilunar wall. Understood? Now coming to the next thing, this pulmonary vein and left auricle, the wall is absent, and left auricle and left ventricle, very important, the bicuspid or mitral wall. The mitral wall is the bicuspid one which is found in the left side of the left auricle and left ventricle. And left ventricle systematic arch, they have semilunar wall. So learn it anyhow. Okay, now coming to the aortic arches, the pulmonary arch rises from the left anterior angles of the right ventricles. So I already told you all, when you all know doctor means received, deoxygenated blood is received by the right side, so right side will pump the blood to the lungs because it is deoxygenated, so the oxygenation can occur. And right side, left side, because it receives the oxygenated blood, left side, so left side will pump the blood to the pulmonary one, systematic one, so the systematic circulation can occur. Now coming to the, see here, this is the pulmonary, systematic arch. Systematic arch will give the blood to the body, and from right atrium the blood will go to the pulmonary arch. Okay, now these two arches also have what kind of cusps? They have semilunar walls. Okay, now coming to one more thing here, in the embryonic stage, this actually the aortic arch and the pulmonary arch, they are being connected. Okay, that is connected. Okay, this connection actually is the ductus arteriosus. Okay, so this connection is the ductus arteriosus, and a fibrous strand, here I have written it, a fibrous strand known as ligamentum arteriosum is present at the point of contact of systematic and pulmonary arches. So what is, if they ask that what is the contact known at the place of these two arches, the pulmonary arch and aortic arch, you have to tell that this ligamentum arteriosum. And what is actually it is the remnant of the ductus arteriosum, which is the connection in between these two arches in the embryonic stage. Understood? Now coming to the next slide. What is the physiology of the heart? On the basis of physiology, heart is of two types: the neurogenic heart and the myogenic heart. Neurogenic heart, it is seen, as you all know, neurogenic means the nervous system controls it completely. Myogenic means the cardiac cells itself, they are modified into some special node which has the ability to generate action potential. So it is seen in the mollusca and the vertebrata. And neurogenic heart is seen in the annelida and arthropoda. And myogenic heart, because cardiocyte cells itself, they are modified, and they actually myogenic heart, they can generate the impulses, but nervous system and the some endocrine system, they also coordinate it so that rhythm can be maintained. Okay, in our heart, or we can say in the human heart, it is the system. Now coming to the next thing, what how conduction system of the myogenic heart works in our human beings. SA node is there, which is the pacemaker. Okay, and AV node, which is the AVN, the atrioventricular node. SAN means the sino-auricular or sino-atrial node. Okay, which is the pacemaker, which is present in the right atrium. You have to understand. See, this is the sino sinoatrial node, which is present into the right atrium. This sinoatrial node, it is a pacemaker. It is also specialized cardiomyocyte cells, and they will give rise to the action potential and they will give rise to the action potential, and it will pass on to the atrioventricular node by the interconnections or internodal pathway, and then this internodal pathway will give the action potential transferred it to atrioventricular bundle, which will, this is also known as atrioventricular bundle, or we can say bundle of His. Very important, it is hundred of times it is being asked what is bundle of His. So you have to tell that atrioventricular bundle is also known as bundle of His, which is present into the septum region, or we can say the interventricular septum. So now they after that they branches into the two separate left hand side area, and that is known as Purkinje fibers. Okay, so you can see the Purkinje fibers here. Okay, now coming to the AV is, now you all know that SA node actually it is cardiomyocytes which generate the action potential, which is also known as pacemaker. AV node is a relay point which will pass on the action potential to the bundle of His, and the bundle of His transfers the action potential to Purkinje fibers, and hence the pumping of the heart, or closing and opening of the these all rhythms will occur. And SA node they can generate action potential every 0.6 minutes. Okay, so which means it can initiate 100 beats per minute, and our heart normally beats 70 to 80 times per minute, on an average 72 beats per minute. Now later on we will study the how the autonomous system and the hormonal coordination occurs in the heart. So thank you for now, thank you for listening my lectures, thank you so much.